Today, Liss and I are going to somewhat continue our conversation regarding grief and loss. And in particular, we are going to explore some of the coping tools that we might employ in order to effectively move through the grief process.
Welcome to Light for Life. If you are returning to our channel, thank you. We value and appreciate you. If you are new here, you are most welcome. I am Liss. I'm a Science of Mind practitioner and a teacher of various healing modalities applicable to all aspects of the self and this life.
And I am Lori. I am a holistic wellness researcher and educator. Welcome to Connections with Liss and Lori.
I think one of the biggest mistakes a lot of people make is that we want to get over the grief. We want the grief to be done. We want this heavy, awful feeling to just go away. And while that is completely normal, it's just not how it works, right? We don't just get to wave that magic wand as much as we would like to. We don't get to wave that magic wand and shazam, everything is just rainbows and sunshine again. So I really do want to focus on the get through part. And I think the thing to really remember importantly is that when we're grieving, oftentimes it's not just one thing. The older we get, the chances are life has continued to life, and we have had to overcome several different things. And what's interesting when grief rolls around is that we get to unpack a lot of different things all at once. So it can feel incredibly overwhelming. It can feel like our entire life is absolutely disrupted. And in a way, it is. There is a big disruption when we lose a pet or a loved one or a job or a relationship or whatever it is that we feel that we have lost. It absolutely can feel overwhelming. And I think it's important to remember that that one thing isn't just that one thing. It's an opportunity, even though it doesn't always feel like an opportunity, it is an opportunity to address all of those other leftovers. It's sometimes it's health. It's dreams we had associated with that thing or that person or that pet. Sometimes even, especially if with the loss of a parent or a grandparent, we can experience kind of the loss of part of our identity. We can, especially in our older years, we can feel that this loss is even a loss of some of our youth. And it can be a lot to unpack. And more than anything, what I have to stress most importantly, I think, is we have to give ourselves grace. That this isn't just one thing. We don't have a magic wand, but we will get through this in time with some tools, with a lot of compassion for ourselves, with a lot of grace for ourselves, sometimes even reaching out for a lot of support. We will move through this. It just takes longer than we want it to take.
Absolutely, yes. Absolutely, yes. I agree with all the points that you just shared there, Lori. And I think for starters, I would like to emphasize, probably just because it was such a massive part of my most recent journey, the parts of ourselves in which we can feel we've lost a part of our identity. So much of our identity is wrapped up in the roles that we play. And in my case, I can honestly say my whole life, I have been in the role of caregiver for someone or something, usually more than one. And it formed a massive part of 53 years. And to suddenly find myself in a place where, yes, I have 5 dogs to look after. I have a husband I take care of, but there's really no one that I can say I'm caregiving for in terms of that active role, which I really have played since I was a little girl. And it can feel like a massive gaping hole in our sense of personal identity. Who am I apart from this role of caregiver? So it's not just the heaviness of the emotion of grief itself that we wish to move through, but also that energetic space that opens up in us, where love for that person, the relationship for that person or thing used to occupy, or in my case, the role used to occupy. There's now a gaping emptiness that used to be filled by that. And that gaping emptiness isn't filled with nothing. It's filled with a sense of void. It's filled with that sense of something is missing. And to be confronted with needing to replace that when we don't even know with what, I find myself using tools that on the surface are perhaps not very positive sounding, like distraction. Initially, I needed a lot of distraction. As much as I believe in being present with emotions and allowing them and processing them, I could not be present with them 24/7. I could give myself permission to be present with them for a time. And then I needed to distract myself. And that distraction for me takes the form of busyness. So I find a big project, I find something that needs sorting out and organizing and complete redoing, and I make sure I'm very, very busy. And that becomes one of my coping mechanisms. And I am aware that I'm distracting myself from what I don't want to be feeling right now. But it's not in a suppressive way. It's in a, all right, these feelings are so huge and so overwhelming, I've got to process them a bite at a time. I can't allow myself to drown in the fullness of this experience. I'm going to deal with it one bite at a time. And so even something that can potentially be negative, like a distraction or like busyness, doesn't have to be if we're employing it consciously in order to deal with the resultant emotion of a big loss.
I couldn't agree more. Having done both, there were times when I didn't necessarily feel as though I had a choice. I did feel at times that it was all consuming. And even though I would throw myself into, I'm a cleaner when I'm uncomfortable. I would throw myself into a deep cleaning project. It was everything I could do to do that cleaning project. The weight of the emotion that I was feeling was so heavy. But I did feel like it was important for me to move in some way, shape, or form. For me, and I think a lot of people, um, these emotions are so energetically intense that movement is often required to not just to cope, but to physically move a lot of that energy out of your body. And we have a dog, and I was able to walk her once spring rolled around, but in the winter when you're stuck in the house and there's too much ice or the weather just doesn't cooperate, I did have to find different ways to move. A vibration plate, a rebounder. Even if I didn't feel like it, sometimes dancing, dancing in my kitchen as I was cooking just to move my body because I couldn't stand how I felt. I'm just being really brutally raw and honest that I knew movement was important. And even if it didn't help me feel better, I did feel different. And on many days, different is the accomplishment. Different is the goal. Um, it does lift a little bit. It might not help you feel magically better and your whole day has shifted, but it does feel different. And that's what we're looking for when you're in the early stages of feeling so many feelings. Different is the goal. presence is important to, kind of like you said, know when to go ahead and feel the feels and know when to press pause on those feelings and just start moving.
Yeah, for me, I am such a cognitive person. As much as I do have a depth of feeling and I am very empathic, I am primarily cognitive. And so for me, it's like, all right, let's just not feel. Let's just switch off emotionality and switch the mind on. And that's why I need a problem to solve. So organizational things are really important because it engages my whole brain. We've got to think about how we're doing this. We've got to create structures for it. My brain is occupied, so I'm just not in my emotions at all. So I find that very helpful because when I'm feeling, I don't know how to ignore it. So what I have to do is actually just switch into cognitive functioning. But yes, practicing presence with feelings that are difficult. I come back to what I say about bite-sized chunks. I think what can very often happen is that we so want to be present with our emotions so that we can work through them, so that they don't linger. We don't want to do the suppression and ignore and denial thing. But then we're so present with our emotional reality that we can actually get stuck in it. It can feel like we're drowning. And that can become a depression that isn't just a normal sadness because we're grieving or we're mourning. It's actually a depression that's depressive in and of itself. I actually had a friend reach out to me about exactly that today, where it's almost like it's not grieving the normal, natural, healthy way anymore. It's an extended kind of grieving that has now actually become a mental health issue, to where 7 years down the line or 9 years down the line, you're still stuck in that phase of too much emotion and you don't know how to shift it. You're still consciously, continually feeling sad. And I think the glue of that is being too present with too much emotion, too often, too soon. And then that tends to become a present emotional state that becomes very difficult to actually shift. If
I
that
couldn't
makes
agree
sense.
more. No, it makes perfect sense because I lived it. I experienced it. The first time that I had a significant loss in my life, I was 13. I didn't have any tools. I didn't have the psychological maturity. I didn't have a support system around me. And I was completely overwhelmed with everything that I was feeling. And I absolutely got stuck in that phase. They talk about stages of grief. Well, for some of us, there's one stage and we get stuck there. And I think that's why perhaps this episode is so important because while we're trying to normalize grief and encourage people not to resist it and to keep it at bay, because I feel like that makes everything so much heavier, is when we resist it and we feel like we can't contain it. We can. We just need to expand our container a little bit. But to give people tools, to give people hope that you will move through this. The art of allowing is the key to moving through it and not letting it completely consume you. And again, it might not feel like a choice. And for some people, it isn't a choice. They just don't have any idea how to navigate this road that maybe they're on for the first time. The first time you have a loss, you haven't been down this road before. You don't know how to navigate this very easily. And, actually a couple of tools that I feel are grossly underestimated and overlooked because they are so incredibly simple that can be really profound. Like I said, movement. Even if you can only walk a couple hundred feet that day, that's okay. Walk a couple hundred feet. Just taking those steps is forward movement. But, another thing that can be really helpful is if you can do a little more exercise and you increase your heart rate just a little bit, breathing is free, it's natural, and it's completely underestimated. When we're tense, when we're under stress, oftentimes we breathe to about here. And breath in and of itself can be so cleansing and can be such a beautiful, gentle way to move that energy, to bring life into your body through the breath. And as equally as important, to exhale burden, heaviness, sorrow, pain, frustration, whatever it is, intentionally breathing peace, harmony, joy into your body, love into your body, and exhaling the things that are just too heavy for you to carry. Just the simple act. And don't underestimate the power of comfort food. One little meal that is your favorite, that truly nourishes your body, can move mountains. We underestimate the little things.
Absolutely. Comfort coffee, I would have to
Yeah.
say. When my heart is sore, my chest cavity literally wants that warmth of drinking a cup of coffee. Coffee can be so, so comforting for me. And another tool that I have found so helpful, Hun, which I'm really going to have to elaborate on, because for people to see the subtle and yet crucial difference is what I want to convey here. And that is just a shift in focus. Very often when we have had a loss, what we're focused on is the loss itself, and we're sad about the loss itself. But if we can consciously choose just to shift our focus a teeny tiny little bit from the loss itself to the thing that we are sad about losing instead. And what was wonderful and beautiful and fantastic about the person or the thing that we've lost? Instead of focusing on the loss itself and being sad about that, focus on the beauty that was lost, the wonder that was lost, the glory that was lost, the relationship that was lost, the beauty, whatever it is. Focus on that and be sad about that. That's fine. But to shift the focus from loss in and of itself into focusing on what was wonderful that was lost, what was beautiful that was lost, what was valued and treasured that was lost. That subtle shift in focus is the difference between actually integrating and filling up that energetic space or just staying in that energetic void. And it is that that adds the elongation and the longevity unnecessarily to the grieving process, is when we're focused on loss purely as a loss. And we're consciously choosing to stay focused on that. Just that subtle little shift, which can be difficult to make. But that subtle little shift can literally make all the difference in the world.
I agree. It's the subtle things, it's the little things. It's the things that we tend to default, and hopefully, ideally, having the conscious awareness to shift that focus just a little bit. Like you said, in the beginning, all we feel is that emptiness of that person or that pet or that job or that relationship no longer being in our lives. And ideally, at some point, especially if you have some kind of memorial for the lost loved one, you get to hear from other people what they loved about that person, or what they loved about that pet, or what they loved about, whatever. And you remember the love, because love never dies. Even though it feels so far away now, love never dies. It's always going to be there. That love never goes anywhere. And sometimes that's what gets me going, is remembering that, yes, these people are gone from my life. Yes, I really miss those pets, but man, the love that they brought to my life stays with me. I get to keep that. I get to hold on to that forever. And sometimes that's what gets me out in the sunshine. Sometimes that's what helps me remember to really take care of my body. And speaking of the body, to really focus on core dense nutrients that are completely depleted when we do feel all of this grief and this loss. We burn through a lot of amino acids, we burn through a lot of essential trace minerals. It's no small thing to also remember to take care of our physical body that needs a whole lot more nutrition than it does on any given day when everything is running smoothly.
Excellent point, honey. And the fact that we are affiliated with such an incredible range of exactly that is also part of the reason why we need to share this. So information about the products that we recommend and associate ourselves with will be somewhere in a comment or in the description box. But today's episode is brought to you by our affiliation with the Root Brand. One of the reasons why I personally love Root's products is because this brand stands apart in a market otherwise flooded with wellness. Magical formulas promising you the world in 30 days in one pill. So much of the wellness space, especially the natural wellness space, has become a grifterverse. Everyone is following the latest fads and trends, usually mistakenly, because most products are isolates, or a combination of a few isolates. The body doesn't work that way. We have to address issues in the body holistically. Not simply add one or two ingredients as though they're fairy dust. Root does this by working with your whole system on both a cellular and intercellular level, and slowly over time restoring wellness and well-being. It does so gently, and I can't recommend that you have a look at their product on their website strongly enough. Use the link below on screen or in the description box. But remembering to do that for ourselves is absolutely essential. Getting enough sleep as best we can, drinking enough water, and adding back what we're not always consciously aware of we are burning through is extremely important. And you know, for me, my beloved kitty cat died last week. She had been a part of our lives for 25 years. Her mommy and her daddy were my first cats, and she was with us literally from birth, and she was 25 years old. And what a magical and incredible soul and being she was. But I've had a really, really hard 2 weeks and last couple of months, to be honest, because she has been deteriorating for quite a while. And as much as it's such a sad loss in and of itself, because she's been such a part of everything for a quarter of a century, it was also addedly difficult because of what a mirror reflective experience it was to what I went through with my granny 9 months ago. My kitty's deterioration literally followed exactly the same pattern as my granny's did. And it was so difficult, so soon after such a huge loss, to go through that repeat experience again with my kitty. And as I sit here telling you this story, I still don't quite know what it means. I still don't quite know what the point is that I'm trying to make, other than to say that no matter what we're dealing with in terms of a loss, there's always these extras. It's never just the loss itself. There's always extras. And don't underestimate the weight of those extras, because as heavy as the loss itself might be, like you say, life keeps lifing. And so there's always the extras as well. So yes, to come back to your point about having grace for ourselves and doing our best to take care of ourselves, it is so, so, so essential. I couldn't agree more.
Thank you for connecting with Light for Life. Please go ahead and subscribe to the channel. If you would like to work with one of us, you can find our contact information in the About section.
Please share your insights, your questions, and your comments with us. We value your feedback. And we really hope that we will see you for our next episode.
Until we connect again, we send you love and light.